Good afternoon, and I'd like to bring the regular afternoon meeting of Township Langley Council to order. And the first item on the agenda is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Whitmire, second by Councillor Fox. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is the adoption of the minutes of the regular afternoon council meeting of February 19th. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Fox. And any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And next motion is to move into resolve to move into special closed meeting for the items on the agenda. And is there any on table? Okay, so moved by Councillor Arneson. Second, okay, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. And let's get this thing turned on. Wow, this whole thing lights up. Okay, I'm going to get your mic. This thing's not working. Hang on. Okay, try that. Intergovernmental. No, it's not working. Intergovernmental. Intergov? Okay, intergov. So. I've got an intergov as well. Okay, Fox, intergov. Anybody else? Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. We're now going to special closed. All right, we'll reconvene the regular afternoon meeting of the Township Langley Council. And the next item on the agenda are presentations, and we have the Langley Intensive Case Management team here. If you please come forward and welcome here. I'll put both mics on. And,
okay, you got it?
Mm-hmm. I'll let you stand there, Sanjeev, and then I can change it.
Okay, just go straight. Slideshow beginning. Okay. Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Sanjeev Nand, Executive Director with Langley Community Service Society, and I have Corinne Blasses. She's the manager of the Intensive Case Management Team, the ICMT. So it's just a presentation overview of the program that's being delivered. I think it started in June, July of last year. Sorry, early 2017. All right, so the ICMT, it's a partnership between 4 major agencies here in Langley. So us, of course, Stepping Stones, Encompass Community Support Services, and the Gateway of Hope. So LCSS has been delivering substance use services for well over 25 years, serving Langley, the city of Langley, and the township of Langley. Stepping Stones has been providing mental health support programs, along with an array of support programs to provide wraparound services for its clients. Encompass Support Services has extensive experience working with the youth, and then the Gateway of Hope, which operates the emergency shelter house. Thank you. So the ICMT, it's a comprehensive approach to dealing with individuals who are facing multiple barriers. So it's a multidisciplinary team. And on the team, there's a psychiatric nurse, addictions counselors, 3 case managers, a peer support worker who's got lived experience, a psychiatrist, a housing procurement specialist, and a nurse practitioner. So Corinne's going to now continue on with the PowerPoint presentation as she's the manager and very closely living with the program.
Good afternoon, Mayor Froese and councillors. So the target population that we primarily work with are adults 19 or over. They have problematic substance or chronic substance use. They do not meet the criteria for ACT team, and they usually present with or without mental illness, concurrent disorder, coexisting functional impairment. They have complex challenges as far as health concerns, housing concerns, mental health, poverty, etc. And they are usually involved in the criminal justice system and in need of additional services. And they are often the people that are not able to walk through the door to go to a doctor's office and seek assistance, or walk through the door of a business and seek assistance. So our goal as a multidisciplinary team is to come alongside that person and improve their health, social functioning, and access to care and services. We provide a wraparound service. So when a client comes to us and goes through the process of an assessment with us, then we start working with them, whether it be to get them established with a psychiatrist, get them established with a nurse practitioner, take them to appointments, et cetera, et cetera. And then we try and integrate that direct service and assist them with the navigation of services and systems. To date, we have not been in operation long enough to see that through fruition, but our goal is when we work with each individual person, we come alongside them and we're basically coaching them how to do that themselves. So there's an end goal in sight when we work with each person. So these are the referrals. I've pulled some statistics from our program from October to the end of January. So you can see that in October, for instance, we received 10 referrals. 10 of them were removed and 10 were deemed ineligible. So they didn't meet the criteria, or they were under 19 years of age, or they did not want to work with the team. That's one of the, it's not a criteria, but when someone is referred to us, we ask the referring agency, is this person wanting to work with our team? Because if they don't want to work with our team, we're not going to get anywhere. Going back to the graph, in November we peaked with over 30 referrals. December came down a bit, 15, January back up at 20, and we're steadily moving up. February we have more and expect more in March and April. Our gender distribution, half of our, more than half are male, double to female, regardless of age. Age at referral. We have a few 19 to 24-year-olds, more represented 25 to 35, but a big number of our clients that are over 45. So if they're not if they're not having CPP or Canada Old Age Security, then they're on the streets and with no income. One of the questions we ask our clients when we do our assessment with them, we ask them if they have had previous mental health treatment. As you can see from this graph, over 25 have had previous. About 7 said no, and 10 were uncertain or unknown, and that means that when we were doing that assessment, that person was not comfortable enough to disclose that information. Housing support, we have a housing procurement specialist. We have 20 BC housing subsidies. To date, we have 4 clients successfully housed, and we're making connections in the community with landlords. Today we have 62 active client files, and we only have 4 people housed. A lot of our clients need supportive housing, and we're not at that step yet. So I've brought some case studies. The first case study is of a male in his 40s. He's a divorced father of 2 school-aged children. He moved here from the interior to be close to his children. He primarily uses cocaine and crack. As I said, he relocated to live closer to his children. His income is $600. He has significant multiple physical illnesses and prescribed medications. He was living in a barn, and we have him housed on a small hobby farm in a private residence. And his substance use has discontinued, and he has the opportunity to earn a small wage for part-time farm chores. And he's more or less stabilized with the ongoing support. Once we find someone housing and we get them housed, we just don't drop them. We follow them for a length, at least a year. I anticipate that we'll be working once we house people. And our second case study is a female in her early 60s, a mother and grandmother. Her drug of choice was alcohol, and she uses crystal meth. She suffers from depression, so that qualifies for concurrent disorder. She was homeless, and we housed her in a one-bedroom apartment. She receives a $300 monthly rent subsidy, and we had a contingency fund. We have a contingency fund to assist with moving costs, so we were able to give her $225 to move in. And this is our team, or part of our team. Our psychiatrist and nurse practitioner are not up there, but our peer support worker and our lived experience, and our admin assistant, addiction specialists, nurses, and case managers.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Excellent presentation, and exciting to get the ICM team to Langley in the first place, and good to see that you're up and running and you already have some successes. A couple of quick questions. I know Councillor Fox also has some questions. The two questions, an ACT team versus ICM, what is the basic difference? And the second question is on the people that you're seeing. I know on the street we see there's a visible homeless, and there's lots of people homeless, but we don't see them. They're, I guess, finding places to live, but it's not a stable situation. How is that split up in your statistics? So number one, just a quick, what's the difference between ACT and ICM? And the other one is...
So the ACT team is going to deal with mental health only. We deal with mental health, addictions, trauma, everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, thanks. And as far as...
And the second half of your question?
So we see a lot of homeless living in tents in the bushes and under the bridges. Very visible population of homeless people. And there's also those homeless people who are in situations where they may be living someplace that we don't see them. They're in a safe environment, but they're not in a very sustainable... They need to move on. They need to get a home, and they've got issues, and they're temporarily housed someplace. What kind of a mix do you see in your group? Are they all from the street, or are some coming from other
They're
areas?
all from the street.
Okay.
I would have to say, I didn't pull the statistics because if we take a client on today, a client presents and they come to us and they want to work with our team and they have an addiction, they're not diagnosed with a mental health issue. That doesn't mean to say they don't have a mental health, they wouldn't have a mental health diagnosis, they just haven't been formally diagnosed. I would say probably 90% of our clientele are the homeless that have mental health issues. And I have another case study of a gentleman that's a schizophrenic. He's almost in his 50s. His elderly parents live in the community. He grew up here. And often with schizophrenia, a person will use street drugs to alleviate the symptoms of the schizophrenia. So then they go off of their prescribed medication, and it just snowballs from there. So this gentleman is in his 50s. He's homeless. He has schizophrenia. We cannot put him into market housing because he can be a threat to others when he's using street drugs. So he would be a person that we would want to put into supportive housing. And that, I would say, is 90% of our caseload right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Fox.
Yes, and thank you very much for coming. Very interested in your presentation. And I think that we, and I'm talking the bigger we, Township of Langley, City of Langley community as a whole, are very fortunate to have you folks in our community doing the work you do. So thank you. You mentioned referrals. Who makes the referrals? Where are your referrals coming from?
Referrals can be made by anyone. We've had calls from parents and siblings. As long as the person that's being referred is aware and on board with that referral, they can come from anyone, anywhere. Primarily, our referrals come from probation, from the police, and from other community social service agencies.
Okay. And are you at liberty to tell us where your office is located right now?
Mm-hmm. We're in the Gateway of Hope, on the second floor of the Gateway of Hope.
Second floor, okay.
Mm-hmm.
A logical place. So the challenge that you, and the demographic that you outlined in terms of your, the people you're serving in terms of the ages. So a number of people you don't get CPP or don't get OAS because they don't by age qualify. So are these people literally not getting any financial support whatsoever?
Some. What we have discovered since we started the team, in order to get people housing, you have to have identification. And again, we probably had 80% of our clientele that didn't have one piece of identification. And so some of them were already on social assistance, some not. So today we've got most of them on social assistance if they're not receiving old age or Canada pension.
So they do get social assistance. Now, you mentioned that, I think in one of your case studies here, one individual was housed on a farm and got a small earning stipend for working on the farm. Does that compromise their social assistance or any of the other assisted wages that they can get?
In his case, no, because he also was receiving for disability, and he's allowed to make, I believe it's $600, $600 or $800.
Additional to that. Okay, so he's in that's a good position for him to be in because that money then goes directly into his pocket.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, good. Now, one other thing, you mentioned you have 20 BC housing subsidies. Is that an allotment that you get?
That is for individuals that we can put in market housing. So as I said, for instance, this gentleman with schizophrenia, we would not be able to put him into market housing because he could be a threat to others in that building, or,
right.
It just wouldn't be a proper setup. But if we have a client, such as my female case study, who's quite, even though she suffers from depression, and we've worked with her and stabilized her as far as her addiction is concerned, she has that subsidy from BC Housing, so she lives in market housing. So we're able to subsidize up to $525 a month.
So you said you had 4 people presently in that kind of situation, so there are 16 potential spots still available?
Actually, no. We have 4 people successfully housed, but one person has a CPP and old age pension, so he doesn't have a subsidy. So we potentially have 17 housing subsidies
Available, so at your disposal. Is that renewed on an annual basis, or how's the renewal of that kind of thing take place? I mean, I'd hate to see these people put into a situation and then be cut off.
I've been informed, because that's not our agency's input on that's not our arm of the...
So that's a partnership that we have with Stepping Stones, which is
Okay.
also dealing with supportive housing. So BC Housing provides that 20 allotment, and hopefully more in the future.
In the future, yeah.
Right. But right now, because it's such a new program, right now they're giving 20 allotments. So it's for a year right now because the contract's a year. It is a 3-year contract though, and it renews every year. So for the first year we have 20, and then for the next year hopefully we get another 20 or so.
Okay, so you're building on that.
Yeah. That would be the plan.
Yeah, and there's no, you have to reach a certain threshold before you get the next level. Is there any of that, or is that?
No, there isn't. The funders, BC Housing and Fraser Health, they're very aware of the sensitivity of the clients, right? And to be very accommodating in terms of supporting the client's transition into be it counseling or housing or anything like that. It's not as stringent as a regular kind of funding contract, if you're familiar with. They're very supportive. The main goal here is to get the clients into counseling, supportive homes, off the streets, off the drugs, and back into employment and becoming kind of like productive residents, I guess, in a way.
Functional. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Councillor Qualley.
Thanks for being here today. How much time do you spend in Langley? Are you here full time? Because I think ACT is one day a week or maybe
We're
2
here
days?
full-time.
So
We're
you are-
7 days a week
Okay, so you are functioning 7 days a week.
and 12 hours a day.
I'm sure more if you could find the time. I wonder, just logistically, you were talking about some identification. Are there ID lockers available to the street entrenched homeless anywhere in Langley?
No, and as a matter of fact, we had a situation this afternoon in front of Gateway with one of our female clients who has 4 buggies. And she was camped out on the edge of the property, and city bylaw arrived, and they asked her to move her buggies. And so she did that very slowly, but she also had to go to the washroom. So she tied something around herself and used a pot and went to the washroom, and he called the police, and before we knew it, we had 6 squad cars and police and bylaw, and then bylaw brought in their trucks and took everything away, and she was handcuffed in the back of a squad car. So I just look at that and I think all those tax dollars for a 58-year-old woman with 4 buggies.
Right, I'm sorry, my question wasn't about the buggies. I think Gateway will accommodate 1 buggy or something, right, for storage. But I think when I look at other municipalities in the region, Richmond's a good example. Richmond's created a safe space in one of their public buildings. I'm not sure if it's in their municipal hall, or one of their public buildings that's really accessible, where they've created free access to identification lockers. So it gives the street entrenched homeless somewhere to store their ID that's safe and dry and accessible. So my question was around that at Gateway, or anywhere in the municipalities. There's nothing like that?
There's nothing. No.
Okay.
I thought you were just talking storage lockers in general.
Yeah, 4 buggies is a lot, right? I mean, I don't
Oh,
know
definitely.
what the expectation
Yeah.
should be around for storage of things like that. You said you have 64 clients, and the new rooms, the supportive housing rooms that are being proposed by BC Housing for the Old Quality Insight, those numbers are pretty similar. So do you see the proposal for the Quality Insight as really being a solution for most of these people, the 64 people, or they're proposing, I think, 70 spaces over there?
I would say yes, because once a person has worked with our team and we've stabilized them, having the quality in, we can determine whether a person previously we had thought maybe couldn't be successful in market housing. We may see that they're quite capable of being in market housing, and then we would move that person on to market housing that would enable us to keep, there would be movement in the Quality Inn.
And that's one of the concerns I've heard from the public about the Quality Inn proposal, is that once they get into the Holiday Inn proposal, there's nowhere for them to go. But the next step would be one of those 17 placements that you have available through market housing to move them in, get them stabilized, get them employed, and get into some sort of lifestyle where they could move into that housing. So that was the disconnect for me. So I appreciate that information, and the 17 spaces of market housing. I mean, frankly, if we could get 17 of them from the 64, I think we'd be doing an amazing job in that regard. So, I guess I just wanted to hear from you about the impact of that supportive housing proposal and what that will mean from your perspective to the street entrenched homeless here in Langley.
Because we have clients that have been on the street for over 20 years. And they don't know, to live indoors even. I remember in my former position, we had this gentleman with Housing First, and he had he came for a week outside of the building. He stayed overnight, and then he moved into the lobby where he stayed for a week, and into the hallway, and then finally into his accommodation, because he just could not do it.
With Abbotsford Community Services, not too long ago, a few weeks ago actually, some of council and the mayor toured the supportive housing complex. Do you remember the name
Hearthstone.
of it? Thank you, Hearthstone. And it was really amazing, the opportunity that they provided, and they gave us access to talk to some of the residents about the impact it had, and exactly the process you just described was one gentleman who was living there, and he was still struggling with sort of fitting in and settling in, but it was really not the place that people think it is. So it was really an interesting exercise. So thank you for the work in the community. It's important, and hopefully we can figure out a way, perhaps through this quality and proposal, if it moves forward, to work on some identification space for people, because you're right, that is one of the biggest barriers in people getting assistance is proof of identification.
What we do with our clients is once we've obtained the identification for them, then we ask them if they would like us to keep it and give them a photocopy, and most of our clients do that.
You are the ID locker.
So we're the ID lockers.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councillor Arneson.
Oops. Yes, thank you very much for coming today. I have to say that one of the things that I really enjoyed about your presentation is that you bring real life experience. It animates it for us to see people's profile and to see people's living arrangements, and to talk about how it is that really almost anybody, but especially those who have mental health issues, get into trouble, and especially the undiagnosed aspect, or people self-medicating. So I know that's a huge problem. I did have a question actually regarding your housing subsidies. And so the placement of individuals in the community, is that something that you do directly? Like you procure that within different neighborhoods, I assume?
Yes, that's something we do directly. So our housing procurement specialist works with all our clients that are identifying that they want housing at that time. And so he goes through a whole process with them. They do a tenant profile, etc. And then they go out and he supports them while they look for accommodation.
I know some other service agencies, what they've been able to do, I think at Stepping Stones, they've cultivated a relationship with certain landlords so that they have at any given time more of a pool to draw on, because they anticipate that there could be some challenges with placing those individuals. Is that something that you do as well?
It's exactly what we do.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, that's Stepping Stone's role in this partnership.
Okay.
Yeah, so the housing procurement specialist is actually a Stepping Stone's staff member.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a model.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'd be interested to know whether or not you keep statistics on all of your different clients, and especially prospectively, so that people can recognize, people in the community can know that you have an individual, and this is maybe where they started, but they've been successful for 5 or 10 years being integrated into the community.
We do keep statistics. That's one of the requirements from our funder, Fraser Health Authority. As far as giving the public that information, we're very protective because of confidentiality.
I understand.
So that's why with the case studies, I've just used male, female, and such. So we try to use non-identifying factors, but that's something we definitely will, in 4 or 5 years, hope to have, that we have these clients that are willing to step forward and say, this is where I came from.
Mm-hmm. I also think in terms of public acceptance of having individuals, like I strongly believe that if people recognized how many individuals were within their own immediate community that may have been housed in this regard, but they don't know that, and so they're rather anonymized by the process, as opposed to the issues that we sometimes see when we have a collectivization of those individuals in one place and people become concerned. But that's why I think it's important to have information about what it is that you're able to achieve. And I think also Councillor Qualley mentioned the facility in Abbotsford, and it was just really impressive the degree to which they had integrated that group into the community and addressed the concerns. And so I think that's part of the overall mandate, obviously, as is to try and get community buy-in for those propositions.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, because we want to measure metrics, the performance metrics, the KPIs, because that's how you know if you're actually providing a quality of service or not, or if you need to improve the service delivery model. So definitely, I mean, we are collecting stats, and that is a measurement tool in terms of the number of people that we reached, the number of people that we've housed, and if we're actually making a difference in the community too, right? So
I'm sure it helps with future funding applications
Absolutely.
too, when you give them some evidence. Thank you very much for coming.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. There's no further questions, so thank you for your presentation.
Sanjeev.
In the next item of delegations, we have Brad Dirks and Stacey Wakelin here to present. Welcome here. And Ms. Wakelin, congratulations on your cultural diversity nomination.
Thank you. Thanks. I appreciate that. Good afternoon, Mayor Froese and councillors. We don't have slides. What we're asking and sharing with you today is pretty basic. Maybe you could hold that up for now. The Safe Space Program. The Safe Space Decal Program is an initiative that started in Seattle and was brought to the Lower Mainland by the VPD. Our enthusiasm for this program stems from the educational opportunity it provides to police officers and the public. So we were thrilled to hear that the RCMP approved this initiative and are rolling it out across BC. And so the decal itself, it is slightly smaller than this and would be available for businesses, organizations, municipalities to display in their windows of their property. Quite simply, detachments receive training acquainting them with the LGBTQ community, especially the transgender community. Decals are then available to local businesses that declare they are indeed a safe space and will assist the community when LGBTQ community members are being targeted. And that is something that sadly this segment of our population do face, probably more so than other segments of the population. That business pledges to provide a safe space and assist in notifying the RCMP. Officers respond to these calls, and those officers have been trained. So that's what really excites us and the families that we represent. It ensures that there is more education happening out there in the community. The positive impact is not only felt within the community at large, but within the RCMP community as well. The members of the RCMP that identify as LGBT would also benefit from the knowledge this training provides. We ask that the Township of Langley place these decals throughout public facilities in the township. This will offer a sense of support to LGBT members of the Langley community, especially our youth. And currently in our community and throughout the Lower Mainland, we're seeing a little bit of a backlash regarding some school resources and the like. And I have personally heard from students in our community and how difficult life has been and continues to be. So programs like this, I feel, offer a great sense of support to the youth as well. These kids are living in Langley. Some of them are living a stealth existence, which means that they don't feel they can be truly who they are and feel safe. All children deserve to feel safe to be themselves. We feel it is the duty of local government to take the lead when it comes to creating safe, inclusive societies that respect diversity. It is also our hope that arrangements could be made to possibly devise a training schedule within the township staff. I don't know what that would look like, but it's would be a great hope of ours. And Brad would like to share some items as well.
Sure. You want me to move here? Okay.
Sure.
I'm Brad Dirks. I've lived in Langley my entire life of 45 years. I went through the school from kindergarten to graduation here. I've chosen to raise my two children here. My youngest son is Jacob, and he's grade 6, and my oldest son is a transgender son, and he's 16, and they both attend Langley Fine Arts School. That's why this is near and dear to my heart. When I learned about the Safe Place program in Vancouver, I reached out to Dale Queering, who was the VPD officer that brought the program to Vancouver, Stacy and I met with him over the holidays, and we were brainstorming ideas on how we could bring this to the RCMP. Dale headed up presenting this and bringing this to E Division, which approved this program throughout all of BC. And then we continued just to basically bring this to the attention of the local RCMP, and they've approved it. It's in the Langley Advance today. We had a photo taken with one of the constables who's the liaison officer for this. That's really why this is passionate to me. My son out in the community, he needs to know that there's support in the community that he's calling home. The first question he asked me is, when I go to the public library or the rec center in Walnut Grove, will he see these stickers in the windows there? And I honestly didn't know how to answer that. So that's why I'm here to ask for you guys' support in rolling this out in public places throughout the township.
Thank you. I've got some questions from council.
Okay.
Councillor Fox.
Thank you, and thank you for coming, and thank you for your bold move. I'm looking at the Langley Advance online right now, and there's your pictures. There you go. So it's great to see, and I think this is a great initiative, especially given the climate that we live in right now in terms of the context of these individuals living in our community. Mm-hmm. So when we define a place, a quote, safe place, which seems to be the definition,
yes,
and that individual volunteers to put a sticker or an insignia of some sort on their door, is there an education piece or an expectation piece that goes with that, defining what that person that is requiring that safe place can expect once they walk through the door?
So what we are experiencing right now, we have met with our local RCMP detachment with the superintendent, who has been very, very kind in spending some time with us. I think right now the RCMP, it's a new initiative for them, and the VPD has done a really great job of rolling this out. So the VPD, what they have done, and to my knowledge, it will be a similar kind of experience with the RCMP. What happens is it's not just anyone that will, hey, I want a decal. In the city, there has been almost a vetting process just to make sure that that business is indeed a legitimate business. Ideally, what happens then is that that business, there is a video to watch, and Heather McLaren at the Langley detachment said she has a PowerPoint as well. So we're still kind of waiting to hear what their education piece looks like. But that is definitely the hope, because without the education, it's just a sticky piece of paper. So hopefully a business registers, the RCMP will then speak with that business. That is something that the business can view on their own time, essentially. And the bigger piece of the education puzzle comes with the education of the officers as well, of the detachment.
So I think that being in the network that we're in, i.e. the township, with the multiplicity of different venues and styles of venues, aka look at this building. I mean, You've got the reception center on the second floor, you've got the library,
right?
You've got the rec center on the first floor, and so on and so forth. There's different elements to each of our facilities, and I would hope that as this education piece becomes more defined, that maybe through our the people that interact with the public, that they would get some of that education and understand the value of having it and what it means to have it, in terms of if an individual walks in the door and wants to avail themselves of that secure place.
Right.
It may take some time. I guess that's what we have to be a little bit patient, but hopefully in the bigger picture, we can become a very integral part of what a safe place is in our community and show some leadership. So thank you.
For sure. Thank you.
Councillor Arneson.
Thank you for coming. I think it's a great initiative. I think that it's very timely as well. I guess my comments were along the lines of Councillor Fox's, having to do with the educative component and to ensure that we have always a good match between those who are interested in the program, but their ability to fulfill that function in a manner that is going to be successful, shall we say, in the longer term. Because I would be very interested in the township at a staff level looking at this proposal and making sure from human resources and a staff level that we could figure out a plan how that could be implemented so that, as Councillor Fox said, we have the library and the recreation centre and different components in our civic facility. So I'd want to make sure that if somebody was just, to come by and see that there would be a way for them to fairly easily discern where exactly it might be there that they could, be getting the support that they would be looking for. So I think it's a wonderful initiative. I think more and more as we continue to grow and as social issues evolve, that we have to be more responsive to them. And that's one way when people are out and about and, living their lives in our community. It's great to have a safe place where you know that you can be and that people will be supportive there. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thanks for coming today and making your presentation. Just a question I had was around the inclusivity, and it's called Safe Space Deco Program. And so are you here today to ask about the Safe Space Deco Program or to ask us to consider an educational approach?
Both. We would love to see the decal displayed in public facilities. I think we could both agree that's our first priority.
Yeah.
And the education piece we both feel they go hand in hand as well. We realize, like Councillor Fox said, that takes time. We know we can't say, okay, next week we want all staff trained, but they definitely go hand in hand.
The decal will be consistent in communities all over British Columbia. So if you have somebody coming through Langley or Surrey or Burnaby or Chilliwack or anywhere else in BC that's a RCMP jurisdiction, there's going to have to be consistency. So I don't think that the Langley RCMP detachment is going to create their own version of training, because it'll probably be the similar training at any location. Because if you have an LGBTQ person visiting any of these communities, they need to know that the response is going to be the same at every location. So there already is a training. Prince Rupert was the first city in Canada to launch this outside of Vancouver, and they simply trained their frontline staff at their detachment. They trained their officers at the beginning of each rotation. They had their entire staff trained within a week. And they almost have unanimous support throughout the business community and public places in their whole town rapidly, because they just rolled it out properly. So the resources and the training are there. It's just a matter of people connecting with the resources and doing the training and putting it in their schedule, I guess, to get it done. So once that's done, like I said, I would like to see the city I call home, the town I call home, be leaders in this and kind of show the community that it's inclusive and safe for everybody, and the businesses will follow, whenever they learn about it, I think. But I think knowing that the Township of Langley, the City of Langley, the RCMP are the ones that are going to roll this out and run with it first would be really nice to see.
And can I just offer a little bit of scope as well? So Constable Queering from Vancouver Police Department, he is the one that brought this to the Lower Mainland. So what he has been doing, there are several organizations already on board. The Royal Bank, Starbucks throughout the city of Vancouver have these decals in their windows. McDonald's, I believe, was almost there. So we have some huge...
TELUS,
TELUS,
all the big companies and organizations, yeah.
Huge organizations out there. And up until now, it was just able to be Vancouver, a Vancouver initiative. So with the acceptance by the RCMP, that all of a sudden opens the door to the rest of us out here.
Yeah.
Did that answer your question?
Yeah, no, it did answer my question.
Okay.
I had a second question, and that was inclusivity and feeling a safe place, particularly for children, seems to be a very large, sort of all-encompassing kind of topic. And it seems to be a topic that would be bigger than the LGBT community, that feeling safe, it could be, you might not feel safe in a community because of your race. You might not feel safe because of developmental disabilities or other types of things. And so in this initiative though is around the LGBT community, and not for all children to feel inclusive, but particularly for those members of LGBT to feel inclusive. Would that be a correct statement?
With this program, it started in Seattle, and it grew out of the need for, this marginalized segment of the population, and also to create a better relationship between the law enforcement and that community. So that's where it came from. Definitely, I hear what you're saying. Everyone should feel included. Currently, this is what is out there. And there are other DECL programs. What I liked about it was the education piece. And I don't know if I'm crazy here, but if I saw a business displaying that, I think it's safe to say I would feel, even I'm not a member of the LGBTQ community, but because they are saying, okay, these people are safe here, I think that would increase my sense of safety as well. And I would hope other people would.
Well, certainly all members of our community and certainly all children should feel safe no matter where they go. So
I don't think that kids like mine or families like mine are looking for special treatment with inclusivity and safe places in our community. We're just looking for equal. And I would think of somebody of a different race or skin color or a physical disability, or anybody that's marginalized or picked on, homeless people as well, anybody who is a victim of that kind of stuff should hopefully be able to find a safe place as well. This particular community statistically is targeted at a higher level. There's members in our community that have made it a full-time job to discriminate against kids like mine, that put them at a very, very high suicide attempt rate. So I think this is addressing that problem, not at the expense of others, but so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councilor Qualley.
Thanks to you both for being here today. I just want to be clear, when you're talking about training for RCMP, our resources with our first responders of all kinds are really stretched, right? We don't have an opportunity for RCMP to be out on the streets necessarily doing public education around this.
Yeah.
So you're talking about RCMP doing internal training, right, for themselves, so they understand how the program works and can kind of champion it.
Yes.
But I think you'd have not better success, but I think you'd have a different level of success by engaging some of the business community. So our BIAs, the Chamber of Commerce, who you could find champions inside each group that could help do some of that community education for you, because quite frankly, the RCMP are already, tapped out. There's not a lot left to give at the end of the day for these kinds of, albeit important, they're nice to have things. They're not need to have when there's crime in progress, right?
Exactly.
So I think striking that balance is going to be really critical in the success of the program and finding some champions inside some of those organizations. So.
And that has been one of our questions, and there will be conversations to happen in the near future with the RCMP, and that was one of our questions. How can there be champions in the community that can alleviate some of this work? And truly, it can be as easy as, like Prince Rupert. A new shift comes on duty and they have their morning meeting already and they're just shown this quick video.
The video is short. It's literally 12 minutes of training video and that's it. It gets them up to speed on pronouns and how to deal with and have sensitivity, and basically if they arrive on the site and somebody's been harassed or bullied or worse, they know how to deal with that and not make the situation worse, but make that person feel safe. So the training video is very, very short. And that's all it really is. So it doesn't require funding or additional financial resources. It's just the beginning of their rotation during, I think they called it their watch meeting. They played the video and that was it.
Yeah.
So the Langley RCMP has a really successful program called Business Link. And I don't know who's heading the program up right now. Maybe Councillor Fox, will you recall who's doing that? No. Sorry, Superintendent Power can tell you who's heading that up. But they have a really successful distribution system. So if there's something going on through the business community, like maybe there's been a rash of specific counterfeit money or something like that, they have a blast system that sends that information out to all of the business community. So there is one designated officer inside the RCMP that actually administers this Business Link program. So that might be a good connection for you to talk to about because they're in constant communication. So I get those blasts as a member of the chamber, and other members of the community get them. It's an extensive outreach. So that could be a good place to start too.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going on John McComb show on CKNW tomorrow morning to talk about this, to inform the community and businesses in Langley. So I think that the RCMP in Langley will roll it out and get everything in order so that businesses can start to approach them to apply to get the DECL and stuff. And I think that at that point, when we know that they're all good to go, we'll approach the Chamber of Commerce and the different business associations in Langley as well.
Thanks for your effort. I think everybody in Langley wants to live someplace where they feel safe and have everybody in our community feel safe. So I think it's, thank you for the effort on this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Long?
Yeah, just very quickly, I didn't really want to extend the conversation, but thanks for your presentation. It's just that I wanted to add, now that I've heard what was just said, it already is being rolled out through, I think I heard about it last week at the Alder Grove Business Association's AGM, and it had come through a community consultative safety group that's happening in Alder Grove. I believe they're happening all over the township, so I guess it's rolling out already. But I was curious, who's printing the stickers, and what, I guess you have to qualify, you'd have to get the video along with the sticker, right? So is it the RCMP that's printing that, or is it coming from another organization?
No, it is the RCMP. So it's all available for detachments from the E Division in Surrey.
And that's all over British Columbia?
Exactly.
Exactly, okay.
So the detachment would contact them and say, okay, we're ready. And for VPD, the video, they have a website devoted to this program. That's what we hope to see with the RCMP. Like we said, they're still figuring things out.
Right now, the RCMP is just using the training video that the VPD created.
Okay, good. Yeah. And so and hold the poster again, because the key words there are safe place. So
yes,
even
and this
though,
would be the DECL on a smaller scale.
So that would really, my hope would be encompassing, as has been said here, anybody with an issue, bullying or race or whatever. So
yeah, for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. There's no further questions. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank
Another
you.
great idea from VPD. I like that.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh. Okay, so I worked. Can't help myself sometimes. All right, now we'll move to reports to council, and F1 is proposed corporate asset management policy. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox and seconder. Councillor Qualley. Any discussion? Councillor Richter.
Yes. I would like to amend the policy to add trees. So on page 6, where it says in 2.1.2, natural assets included but not limited to wetlands, aquifers, creeks, and ditches, I would like to add and trees.
Okay, seconder. Councillor Arneson seconds. And on the amendment, discussion? Councillor Long?
Well, we love these things on the fly, but I would prefer to hear what staff's comment would be and what exactly that would mean. Is all trees, or what kind of work? Do we have to do some inventory? Sounds good, but I hate to put staff on the spot through you, Your Worship, but I think we should probably hear what effect this amendment might have.
Mr. Backen, do you have some comments?
And why it wouldn't be included already.
Yeah, I understand. I didn't think this was that type of a policy, but Mr. Backen can perhaps elaborate. Or
Your Worship,
definitely, thank you.
would you like me to?
Sure. Somebody jump in.
Thank
Not
you,
all
yes. Certainly it can be amended to include the words trees with the understanding that it reflects or it applies to public trees only and not those on private property.
Thank you.
So do we have an inventory of such trees? That would have to be undertaken, I would imagine.
No, but we should.
Mr. Seffi?
We do, Your Worship. In terms of street trees, we have an inventory.
Oh, you have
yes,
that.
we do.
And that's part of the asset management program, wouldn't it? Already, I would think. Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yes, well, I mean, if we're going to protect wetlands, aquifers, and creeks, we need to protect trees because that's part of protecting them. So, yeah, I would say that trees are definitely a needed addition to this. And I really wonder why we bother to send things to council for review and consideration if council can't make suggestions about what should be reviewed and considered. So I take exception to Councillor Long's comments. I don't think they were called for. And if council is being asked to approve a policy, then I believe council has the right to add to that policy.
Okay, I don't think anybody said that you didn't have the right, or any member of council doesn't have the right to make an amendment. Councillor Long was only asking about that and what would incur. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So I'd like to speak to the amendment because somehow it may not have said those magic words in there, but I assumed that we would be looking into trees as a natural resource and asset that they are, just because at the very least, global climate mitigation is a huge issue. And so if we're not protecting the trees that we have as an urban tree canopy, then I think that this would be an incomplete policy if we're not taking resources such as trees into account. And I think that staff are well positioned to make the decision about designation of certain types of trees, habitat trees, groves of trees, significant trees, or whatever. I think that that's the job that they do. And so if we include trees, then it will be up to their discretion to include it. And if there is a time in which we need to discuss it further, at least it's there, and we won't be trying to add it later when we realize potentially it was an omission.
Thank you. Just to clarify, Mr. Sefi, this policy is an asset management policy. It's not a tree protection policy. It's to manage the assets that we already have. I fail to see the connection between protecting trees. It's managing. I'm just ask Mr. Sefi that.
Thank you, Your Worship. The street trees form part of our street assets, Your Worship. The transportation network, if you will, includes trees as well as other features. So we see that as part of the municipal asset.
Yeah, I agree. So it's sort of already included in it's in the policy. It's all I wanted to get to. Okay, thanks. Councillor Long.
And I think I got that as well, Your Worship, that it is actually included already, but it's nice to have it emphasized, I suppose, and so there's no harm in adding that word trees. And I love trees as much as anybody else.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? And I'll call the question on the amendment. I guess I got to label it too, F1. And it carries. And the motion as amended, Councillor Arneson, you're next up.
Oh, yes. Oh, the motion is amended? No, I was just going to make some general comments.
Call the question on the motion as amended. And that carries unanimously. And move on to Public Spaces Waste Management Program, Cost Offset Proposal. Councillor Fox, seconder. Councillor Qualley. Any discussion on this? Councillor Richter.
Yes, I had a question with regards to, it says at full implementation by 2022, levies designed to offset 25% of the increased costs required to deliver the new program would generate approximately $70,000 annually. So I guess my first question is, why wouldn't we be looking for a 100% offset for this new program? And second question that I have is, what percentage of dogs are currently licensed in the township?
Mr. Sefi.
Your Worship, with the proposed fee structure, we've tried to remain competitive, if you will, with the license fees and rental fees that other jurisdictions, in particular those around us, currently collect and charge. So that's part of the reason, the introduction of a phased approach. And it's certainly up to council to decide if council doesn't mind us paying on the higher end of the fee structure across the region. And in terms of the number of dogs, I don't believe we have a record of the number of unlicensed dogs. All dogs are required to be licensed. I don't know if we have a way of determining how many are in the township that are not licensed.
Yeah, well, the reason I ask that is I wonder if we do need an inventory of some sort, because I think increasing dog license fees is probably just going to drive people away from licensing their dogs. But the...
Sorry.
Okay,
I'm
get
sorry.
control of yourself. Let's talk.
A dog inventory. Sorry, it's very funny to me.
Okay, carry on, please.
Are we finished laughing at the other end of the table?
Yeah, thank you for that.
Okay, carry on,
Oh, I'm
please.
so glad I
Please,
could make it
council,
in.
let's have some respect.
The question that I had with regards to putting new programs like this in is if they're not going to pay for themselves, why are we even considering putting them in? And it's clear to me that this is not going to pay for itself, and that raises the question of equity, which is why should all taxpayers subsidize a certain section of taxpayers? So I guess unless we're going to go for the full 100% offset, probably doesn't make much sense to do this. And I really do query about the percentage of people that do license their dogs, if that's going to fall just by even putting any increase in. Which again brings us back to why are we even doing this?
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I wanted to relate some of the correspondence and newspaper articles that we've had recently regarding the very unfortunate problem of disposal of dog waste in ravines. So I'm hoping that if we pass this policy, that we'd be able to earmark some of those monies so that we could focus on some of those problem areas. And the other approach would be potentially we could have a cleanup event like we do where we go throughout the township and try and clean up our streets in particular areas, and maybe LEPS would be interested in partnering there, because I am particularly concerned that we make a great deal of effort to protect riparian areas through our regulations, but at the same time it seems, unfortunately, for a variety of reasons, that we are failing to maybe be as not aggressive is not the right word, but as proactive maybe as is necessary in getting the public involved and making sure that these areas are not despoiled, because in fact it's really, really bad for the environment when this happens. I did some research on this because I was thinking to myself, well, you know, it's a problem people don't want to actually deal with very much, because to talk about dog waste is, you know, not very appealing. But on the other hand, it leaches into our waterways, it leaches into groundwater, and it's actually very bad for the environment. So I would hope that part of the monies from the policy will be used towards making sure that we can more aggressively address that particular problem.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Well, Your Worship, I'm encouraged by the efforts to do something about it. I mean, you could look at all items in the waste stream and say, well, you know, it's we're all paying for the bigger picture. I try never to use those disposable coffee pods, but other people do. So we have to find some way of dealing with things in the waste stream. It's not always what you have to do. In terms of what the cost is. I don't have a dog, but I mean, I still think that something has to be done to move towards the correct solution, and I think the township should be lauded in a way for taking some leadership in this, even though it's going to cost a little bit to do it. Doing the right thing often does cost, but I am happy to see that there's a phasing being shown here in the charts that I'm looking at to try and reach 100% cost offset. So I think it's a good start, and we ought to proceed down it.
Thank you.
On that road.
Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. Like Councillor Long said, I appreciate the efforts of staff to find ways to help mitigate this problem, because the dog waste problem in the municipality is significant. And I think we have to start somewhere, so I'd rather recover some of the money than none of the money. So I think, we need to start on this sliding scale, and hopefully we can get to a place where it is a full user pay system, and people are always going to, there's always going to be people who try to avoid these costs by not licensing their dogs or not paying attention to other rules around our recycling program and waste disposal program, but I'd like to get some of the money back for the taxpayers who are actually following the rules.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I support this initiative. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it makes sense to be in line with what other communities are charging. And we do have a property tax system that pays for a lot of the things we have in our community. We don't all use them in the same way. We don't all drive on the same roads, but we have a system that allows us to take care of things in our community without having everything based on user pay. So I think the fact that we're coming up with 25% is a real step forward, and I'll definitely be supporting this.
Thank you. Any further discussion? See none, I'll call a question on F2. And it carries with Councillor Richter opposed. And we move on to F3, Enforcement of Construction-Related Bylaws, Report 1828. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson, second by Councillor Fox. Discussion on F3. Councillor Fox.
I think that this this particular program, we started in June of 2017. I think this program has demonstrated its benefits, and I think that it's an excellent opportunity for us as a community to show leadership in this area, and I strongly support this and moving forward. And I think that the value will be there in terms of what the return is for the dollar.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Your Worship, we did receive a letter this week from a resident in Willoughby that was concerned about some activities in her neighborhood regarding construction. So I'm happy to support this as well, but can staff tell us, what can staff do to try and mitigate some of these concerns? I mean, certainly this is an officer that would be able to investigate and make sure that certain bylaws are followed, I guess, or practices are followed. But is there anything really practical that that council can also help to introduce that will mitigate some of the concerns that are coming to us when there's construction occurring?
Mr. Seffi.
Thank you, Your Worship. The position that is the subject of this report actually addresses many issues, including working outside the allowable working hours. So, in terms of construction noise, in terms of environmental impact of construction with respect to erosion sediment control issues, with respect to coordination between the various contractors or subcontractors working on a site. So all of those matters are dealt with this particular position and this particular officer. As I recall, the communication that Councillor Long references did discuss other issues as well, more broadly in terms of, I guess, the timing of construction, which really doesn't really have the township doesn't really have any control over in terms of when applications come forward for development.
Yeah, and thanks, Your Worship, and I appreciate that, and that helps shed some light on it. But the issue I think that I'm referring to is also perceived safety issues in terms of pedestrians going by construction sites, maybe sidewalks and those kinds of things, which we're trying to address in many ways here. But I think that's a discussion that we have to have in a more full way. How to make sure that the public feels safe, negotiating past a construction site with their kids, etc. So I know that that's slightly away from what we're dealing with here, but it's something we still have to continue to talk about.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yes, what happens if the anticipated increased revenues do not materialize? Will the position revert to part-time?
Mr. Backen, I believe it.
Effectively correct, Your Worship. It would be a staged process. We'd be using auxiliary revenue to start, and then we'd have to actually shrink the program back to meet the operating revenues that we have. Okay, so we're not creating any unfair expectations in the part of any employee's mind right now. I think that's safe to say. There'd be a transition period, but if the revenues were that much lower, we'd be looking at other causes or other implications in the system as well. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question on F3. And it carries unanimously. Move on to correspondence, G1. There's a motion there. Basically, I'd like to do it in two parts. If we could have the first part, was just receiving the letter from Mr. Chris Plagno. Councillor Sparrow, seconder. Councillor Fox, any discussion on receipt? Seeing none, we'll call a question on that. That carries unanimously. Move on to the second part, and this is that the Council of the Township of Langley approves adoption of the Metro Vancouver Regional District Parks Service Amending Bylaw number 1260/2018 by providing consent on behalf of the electors. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, seconder. Councillor Sparrow. Any discussion? Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I've got concerns about supporting this. I mean, we just did it at the last meeting and it didn't fly because they didn't get it right. How do we know that this time they've got it right? I would prefer to wait until we know they've got it right before we vote yet again on helping them out when they can't even help themselves.
Thank you. Councillor
Um, I support that, actually. I think we should be looking to defer this matter until we get some more information. I think that it's not quite clear at this time that they have a mechanism through which it can move forward in an understandable way. And also, we haven't really had any community engagement per se about what the implications would be for the parks.
I hadn't heard a motion yet.
I'll make the motion to defer.
Thank you. And Councillor Richter seconds it. Discussion on the deferral. I can just make some comments. I've read the report. I think it's very clear to me. And what is happening here is a solution to work through this issue that Metro Vancouver Parks finds themselves in, along with the City of Abbotsford. A very workable solution. As far as the park itself, nothing changes to the public. It's still going to be a park. They're going to still walk their dogs in it and jog in it, do everything else without noticing there's any change. This is just working through an issue. I think Councillor Long, who's on the Parks Committee, the Metro Vancouver can maybe explain a little bit better than I can.
Well, actually, Your Worship, I don't think I supported the whole concept of Abbotsford leaving us, but that's a boat that sailed a long time ago. It was decided by both Abbotsford and Metro Vancouver that this is going to happen. It's a mechanical quagmire, I suppose, because, as was mentioned, there was some devices or a method put into motion before that now has met some problems, I suppose. But it's a mechanical thing that has to be solved. I did speak to the mayor of Abbotsford, and he seemed to feel that this was quite appropriate, so I'm going to support it.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
Yeah, the question of input actually would take place at the Metro Vancouver level, the Metro Vancouver Parks Committee. That's where the actual genesis of this particular issue started to evolve, and not at our level, because this particular scenario is not a result of anything that we've done or anything that we've not attended to or attended to. This is as a result of the Inspector of Municipalities intervening in a situation which I guess we can question the validity of it, but it's a jurisdictional issue and we have to move forward with that. I don't sit on the Metro Vancouver Parks, but Councillor Long does, and I know over the last recent meetings, Councillor Long, you've had lots of delegations about lots of issues associated with lots of parks in this particular, and I'm thinking Belcarra and other scenarios like that, where delegations have gone to present their concerns. And I'm not sure if any did come with respect to this particular issue or not, but it's my perception it would be at that level that you would want to make the comments or the input if you were a delegate relative to what the long-term solution would be. So I'm not going to support this deferral at this point in time, because I think that this is a Metro Parks issue. And we're really, as the other 22 other jurisdictions, really giving the support. There is no other option.
Okay, any further discussion on the deferral? I'm going to call the vote on the deferral. And it's defeated with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Long opposed. So back to the main motion. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call the question on G1. And that carries with Councillor Richter and Councillor Arneson opposed. Move on to minutes of committees. H1 is Recreation, Culture and Parks Advisory Committee and Council Priorities Committee and Seniors Advisory Committee. Could I have a motion to receive those? Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just had a question with regards to the Recreation, Culture and Parks Advisory Committee. I see there was no council co-chair present, and I'm just wondering why.
Sure, Councillor Sparrow, your Councillor co-chair, yeah.
Yeah, I can speak for myself. I know Councillor Whitmarsh maybe can speak for himself. I had a very sick daughter at home and couldn't attend as the alternate. So that's why I was not able to attend. It was a last minute issue. So. And
there was a chair, the co-chair chaired it.
Yeah, the co-chair,
so
yes. As a council representative, I wasn't being able to be there.
Councillor Whitmarsh, do you have a note from the doctor? No? Okay.
No note from the doctor,
Okay.
but unable to attend, and there is almost always a council member there.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Through you, I guess, to whoever would like to respond on the committee or staff, I would just like to request that we get some kind of report or some kind of conversation going. There always seems to be a challenge to try and get the volunteer awards process underway in a timely manner, and so it was referred to in the minutes, and I'm wondering if we couldn't just look at opportunities to enhance uptake, because I think it's such an important opportunity for our volunteers to be considered, and then, but I don't want to make it unnecessarily onerous on staff who then have to put out repeated requests for looking for these volunteer award nominations to come forward. So that would be my thought. If we could have that, it would be helpful.
Okay, thank you. Staff taking notes. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on H1, receiving the minutes. Carries unanimously. H2 is the Seniors Advisory Committee recommended motion regarding their work plan. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley, seconder. Councillor Arneson, discussion. Seeing none, call the question on H2. Carries unanimously. And move on to other business. Councillor Richter has a notice of motion. Councillor Richter.
Yes, thank you. Whereas a memorandum was sent to Mayor and Council from the Engineering Division on February 13th, 2018, concerning the TransLink Major Road Network Review, whereas this memorandum identifies the addition of 216th Street from 88th Avenue to Highway 10 as the number 2 priority on the list, and whereas residents of Walnut Grove have long expressed their concern about 216th Street north of the interchange to 88th Avenue and 96th Avenue being a truck route on the basis of public health and child safety due to the close proximity of elementary schools and daycare. Therefore, be it resolved, the Council change the number 2 priority in this report to read from the new 216th Street interchange south to Highway 10, and be it further resolved, the 216th Street north of the new 216th Street interchange to 96th Avenue not be designated a truck route in the TransLink Major Road Network. I so move.
Okay, so just before I ask for a seconder, the second portion of the motion is similar to what came before us on July 10th, and I had to rule that out of order. The motion, there's a motion in May, back in May, when was that? May 8th, that directed staff to do this, and the appropriate time to make any changes would be when bylaws come forward, and it's the same thing I'd mentioned back on July 10th. So when bylaws come forward, council can then make amendments to that bylaw, has the opportunity to make amendments. So I would rule the second part out of order. And so is there a seconder to the first part? Councillor Arneson seconds. Discussion, Councillor Arneson? Oh, sorry, your mic go off? I'll get on. There you go.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm supportive of this, and it while you've already ruled it out of order in its entirety. However, I think it's important to consider, we've had correspondence recently that MOTI is having a health impact assessment. So I think it's important that we not consider whether or not that portion of the roadway going through Forest Hills will be a truck route until such time as their studies are concluded. And we've had the benefit of being able to review them. So, for those reasons, I think that this is a timely thing, and we need to make sure that in doing our due diligence, that we make sure that we have all the pertinent information that actually the community has been very diligent about going to collect, and so I wouldn't want to do anything preemptive.
Thank you. Councillor Fox?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand your comments, Councillor Arneson. Are you saying take it out or leave it in until there's more information? What?
I'm saying don't make any decision until we get that information.
Okay.
That was my intention.
Okay, well, and I can buy into that. I think that I don't want to, I guess the important thing from my perspective on this is I don't want to confuse what the major road network and what a truck route are. I think the memorandum that we've got here from staff on March the 1st, 2018, clearly and distinctly says that a major road network and a truck route, there's no equal sign in between them. In fact, they're quite different. They're quite different designations, they're quite different processes to designate them, and they're quite different in the context of what they mean in terms of how the implications of that use of that road. So I concur with Councillor Arneson now that I understand what you're saying, because I think this memorandum on March the 1st clearly outlines that there are several pieces of information which are outstanding, including the health impact study, which we've hired the Hemaruna EnviroChem Inc., a consulting firm specializing in environmental sciences, to take in this study. We've also got another study happening here, Urban Systems. February 16th, there was a review of their scope of work. They are looking at the North Langley Truck Route Review assignment. So that information's yet to come through. So this particular memo of March the 1st, I think clearly and distinctly states that the memo of February the 15th is only related to designation of a major road network. This actually implies that it's not going to be designated a truck route or is going to be designated. It's a very distinct, and we need to make sure that the public understands this. I did note in the memorandum March the 1st that all the information gathered from the public information session held on June the 19th is actually going to be given to the group that are doing the study. So that information is valued and been transferred on. Major road networks are, I think, one of the most misunderstood entities. It is a value to us. And that's covered in the March 1st memo as well. It does mean money for upkeep, maintenance on an ongoing basis. And so there is a value associated with it, totally and absolutely and unconnected with being a truck route. So I will support the fact that we have the major network review going on, but I can't support anything related to a truck route at this point in decision-making fashion until significant information is garnered.
Thank you. Councillor Richter.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm not following this discussion at all, because the report that was passed in the regular afternoon council meeting on May the 8th of 2017 said that council directs staff to initiate application to TransLink, conduct a public information session to respond to questions, and provide additional information as needed, and bring forward amendments to the highway and traffic bylaw as necessary to incorporate the following modifications. A, 216th Street, first bullet, designate 216th Street from 88th Avenue to the new interchange at Trans-Canada Highway, number 1, as a truck route. The public has been insistent for months now, almost years now, with regards to having 216th Street interchange north to 88th Avenue as a truck route. They don't want it because of the proximity of the schools. And I think they have very, very valid concerns. So I don't understand all this mumbo jumbo that's been touted around the table today about all these reports that are coming in. My request here is quite clear. Let's listen to the public. The public does not want this as a truck route. So let's change what we directed staff to do in May 8th of 2017 to say, yeah, okay, we're all right with it being a truck route from the interchange south to Highway 10, but we're not okay with it being a truck route from the interchange north to 88th.
Councillor Fox, and then I have a response to that. Councillor Fox. Yeah, second. Hey, Councillor Fox. I'm going to respond to that because there's a motion back, but Councillor Fox is next on the list, and then I'm going to respond.
Well, I've spoken once, so
yeah.
you speak, and then
Okay.
I'll have my opportunity a second time.
So back in July 10th, Councillor Richter made a motion that was carried. That says that when the bylaw to amend the Master Transportation Plan, Highway and Traffic Control Bylaw, truck route comes to Council for approval in accordance with the Council Resolution of May 8th, a public hearing style meeting to allow public input be specifically included in this process. So, in a way, I think Councillor Richter's already paved the way for some input, and it would really be helpful that we have all the information in front of us before we start making decisions at this stage. And it's there, and it was carried by this Council. So, there already is a mechanism put forward by Councillor Richter that there would be an opportunity for the public to come and speak, and we need to hear from all the public and have an open thing. So I hear what Councillor Richter is saying, but I think that motion's already there, and this almost contradicts that earlier motion in that now we're taking things away. We haven't even heard from the public yet. Councillor Fox.
Yeah,
I'd like to know then what it is that we've already, if you've declared some of this out of order.
Just the second part, but the first part is in order as a motion. So
we change the number 2 priority to read.
Yeah, therefore be resolved that change number 2 priority. That's the motion that's on the floor. Just that first piece. Second piece I've ruled out of order. So, Councillor Fox.
So first off, I don't understand where the term mumble jumble comes. I think that staff have gone to a great deal of work to put together a fairly comprehensive and historically valid memorandum here on March the 1st. I think it's pretty clear from staff's memo that we are to soon receive additional information related to the designation of a truck route through some two, in particular, fairly comprehensive studies. The second thing is, I think that the staff made it very clear that a major road network review has nothing to do with a truck route designation. So I'm not sure how the mumble jumble piece fits in. I think that it's very clear that let staff do their work and come back. The piece that I tried to allude to is the public information session where there was feedback forms and so on and so forth. That information is also being included in any transfer of information to the consultants. So they've got that information there. If and when, and maybe this is a question through to Mr. Seffi, through you, Your Worship, if and when this report comes back, will there be public opportunity to respond through it, through a further public information session or input session? Is that part and parcel of how the public will be able to engage again?
Your Worship, that would be consistent with Council's direction.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The motion of
July
10th. Sorry, the motion of July 10th.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Yeah, I was just going to reiterate the same points. I think we, as a council, voted in July to have, when the bylaw and when the information was collected by staff, that the public would then have an opportunity to provide input. As was stated by the mayor, it was Councillor Richter's own motion. So I don't know why we're trying to sort of circumvent that by now changing things again before we've even gotten to that point. I think we just need to let the reports come in, let the bylaw come before us, let us have the input from the public before we start changing what it is we're doing. I think we need to wait to hear from the public, which is what we said we would do back in July, and I tend to stick to that.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call a question on I-1. The motion fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, and Councillor Long opposed. Now move on to I-2, the Mayor's Gala. Thank you very much. See some firefighters in our auditorium. Thank you very much for coming. So I'll read it out. Whereas the Township of Langley Professional Firefighters Association, the IAFF, Local 4550, work continuously to support the community through many fundraising and volunteer programs. And whereas the community greatly benefits from the charitable contributions through the efforts of the Township of Langley Firefighters Charitable Society, whereas neighbouring municipalities such as the City of Surrey's Mayor's Charity Ball have had great success in raising money for their communities, whereas the Township of Langley would greatly benefit from hosting an event to raise funds for the new emergency ward at Langley Memorial Hospital and other worthy causes in the Township of Langley, and whereas the Mayor's Office has received a request by the Township of Langley Professional Firefighters Association, which is attached. Therefore, be it resolved that Council endorse the partnership of the Township of Langley Firefighters Charitable Society and the Township of Langley Mayor's Office to host a Mayor's Gala in 2018. All net proceeds from the Mayor's Gala will be managed and dispersed by the Township of Langley Firefighters Charitable Society, with a stipulation that funds raised by this event be used for initiatives within the Township of Langley. Further, a report will be provided to Council as to disbursement of funds raised within 6 months of the event. I so move. Second. And second by Councillor Sparrow. And before I go on, apologies for the typo. It's IAAF. It says attachments should be IAFF, and perhaps it'll be reflected in the minutes. Thank you. Okay, any discussion? Councillor Fox.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you very much for this particular letter from the President, Andy. Thank you. I've had the opportunity to attend the Mayor's Charity Ball in Surrey. It's an absolutely fantastic event. It's actually quite overwhelming for a lot of reasons. Firstly, the number of people. Secondly, the incredible involvement of the firefighters in this particular event. I know for a fact that the firefighters in Surrey, this is one of their major fundraisers, and it has been extremely successful in their charitable organization supporting immense work in their community. And I think that this will, in our own community, start to evolve to be a very major charitable event here. I can't think of any better place than our new emergency award. I can tell you firsthand, I had experience there this past weekend. I went through it on a gurney, not really wanting to go through it on a gurney, and not practicing. I legitimately ended up there and got outstanding service despite the cramped quarters, and I must commend our medical staff there, having then been transferred for 3 nights up into a ward, which wasn't a lot of fun either. But that's the reality of where we are. I think that when we talk about the Firefighters Charitable Society, we talk about a group that has integrity, and I think we have a group that I think they have the manpower to put this into place and do an awesome job. It doesn't come without effort, and it doesn't come without work. We saw, and I wasn't there Friday, Saturday night. My apologies. I was lying in emergency. Not that I wanted to be. I'd rather be at your function, but that's where I was. So, but I think that Langley is in need of this new emergency award, and I can't think of a better place to put the money right now that you would earn in any event of this nature. So I am in full support of this and look forward to participating. And I know all of Surrey Council participates and is very supportive of it as well. So
thank you.
My 2 bits.
Councillor Richter.
Yes, I think the expansion of the Langley Memorial Hospital Emergency Unit is a wonderful project to support, and I'm very thankful that our firefighters are taking this initiative on. I only had one question, and that was, it references the partnership between the firefighters and the mayor's office, and I'm just wondering what the cost to the Township of Langley will be. Are we expected to be putting resources from the mayor's office into this? If so, what and how much?
At this point, the cost dollars outlay would be borne by the function itself, and we're working with the firefighters and with donors. I don't believe there'd be any funds expended by the mayor's office. However, there would be some staff support during. Probably some would be during business hours, and I know some would be doing volunteer time after, I'm sure. But there would be some staff support, and that's really why I brought it to council, because there's some staff support that would be done, and not to interfere with the daily duties of our staff, but certainly the mayor's office and mayor and council assistants there are there to help all of council, and would be expected to, if there's anything that needs to be done. And I don't see it as being onerous. There will be a committee set up by the firefighters who will be organizing this, and it's just to provide some support as it comes up, but not a huge cost outlay or any cost outlay as far as dollars. Hopefully that answers your question, Councillor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Unlike Councillor Fox, I haven't had the pleasure to go to the Surrey Gala Ball. However, I'd probably
had a chance to go to the emergency ball.
Well, I've had many emergencies, but it wasn't a ball, so that's another story. But I did look at the Surrey model, because they have quite an extensive Facebook page in which they talk about all the events, and it is a wonderful gala. I think I was really attracted to the idea that the marriage of these two functions were mutually beneficial. So the mayor and council can come out in support of a wonderful charity, and those charitable contributions will all benefit the community, which I think is really good. Also, I guess I'll have to go out and enhance my wardrobe, because it seems like I don't have enough ball gowns quite yet. So I won't be dusting one off. I'll just, try and go out and get something that would be suitable. But I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think that it is a great initiative, and I'm hoping we're moving forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, thank you. This is a great initiative, and thanks to the Township of Langley Firefighters Charitable Society for suggesting this event and encouraging it. I think it's a wonderful event. I think we should have something like this in Langley, and I really appreciate the efforts that'll go into it. I just had a brief question, and maybe it's just through to you, Mayor, since it's named after you.
The mayor's
gala.
It's not Jack's gala.
Okay, that's true. It's not Jack's gala. The mayor's gala, your office. I'm assuming that the intention is for this to become an annual event, and I'm wondering if so, what the process would be in determining where those funds go on an annual basis. Certainly, I appreciate the emergency ward is a great thing, but 5 years from now, will it still be going there? Or what's the sort of the idea behind that?
And so I specifically put in 2018 in the motion. As with everything, it's great to do one, see how it goes, and then obviously there'll be another council next year, and have that council review it and work with the firefighters. And they may not want to have another one, who knows? But if it's successful, certainly I think a motion would come back to council next term, or next year. So that's why I put in 2018. I didn't want to presuppose that we do this every year. So hopefully it's successful, and it's as with all of these sorts of events, they always take time to get momentum. The first one isn't as successful as the second one, and so on and so on. Certainly, we would expect that there'd be some learning and some growing pains, but hopefully, this can carry on indefinitely, and so that's why I only put it in 2018.
Then there would be, I guess, after the event's over, some kind of a report to council, so we understand the success of it and maybe plans going forward, that sort of thing.
That's right. So in the motion, that's why there's a report to council, so that and within 6 months, so that council would have an opportunity to see the value in it. Okay. Yeah. Councillor Qualley. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to our firefighters for this initiative. It's a lot of work to put an event like this together, so I commend you on your interest in getting started on this, because I think it's potentially going to be one of the premier events in the community. If you look at the success that they've enjoyed in Surrey, everybody really looks forward to that event. So I guess my question was around the letter we received from Mr. Hewitson, and since he's in the audience, if you can't answer it, Mayor Froese, maybe he can. It just was in the paragraph, it says the in partnership proceeds will be donated to the hospital's emergency department and other foundation charities. Was that Langley Memorial Hospital Foundation or your foundation charities?
That'd be the Firefighters Foundation charity. And so, sorry, the Firefighters charity will disperse the money into other worthy charities. So
it's not all staying with the hospital foundation?
No, it's to give flexibility that there are other charities that they donate to. And perhaps Mr. Hewitson can.
And if I could just address that, Your Worship, thank you for the opportunity. As you're aware, our charitable organization does a lot of work in Langley, and when we approached the mayor's office with the concept, there was a need for the emergency ward, which just became a natural major recipient. But we do support programs for snack programs for schools. We do Christmas hampers. We do all sorts of other work in the communities that are also desperately in need of funding. So we're just hoping that some of those funds can go towards more of those initiatives. And as the mayor has identified, for 2018, all the monies that we will be raising at this particular event will stay in the township. So
great, thank you.
Hopefully that answers it.
It does.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Hewitson for mayor. Councillor Long.
Well, thanks. It's a pleasure to support this initiative, and I just want to recognize that at the firefighters' dinner, it was a very proud moment for all of us when there was a check held up for $45,500 for muscular dystrophy. So I think we should be recognizing and encouraging and appreciating any group within the township that's raising money for charities, but especially to our firefighters who do a terrific job at that. So it's a small thing actually for us to accept this invitation, really, when you consider the amount of work that's going to be involved and the amount of folks that will be helped. So it's pretty easy for me to support that. Thanks, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Yeah, I guess I just want to echo the comments that have been made. I think I was certainly excited to see this when it came in our package. I think it's exciting when you start to see the union grow and the charitable association grow and the work that they do in our community. It is definitely appreciated by all aspects of our community. So I think it was a really natural fit to have the emergency ward be the sort of main donor recipient, and I'm excited to see this. I think it's definitely going to be a big job, so hopefully you guys got lots of eager volunteers within your department to step up. But yeah, I'm excited. Hopefully this will be the start of something great, and certainly Surrey has done a great job, and hopefully we'll give you some advice if you need it as you go through this process, and I'm excited to see this start, and hopefully it'll be an annual event.
Okay.
New shoes, or a dress too, maybe,
I don't see any further discussion. Again, thank you very much. I think this is going to be an excellent event that'll go on for many, many years in the Township of Langley, and certainly the new emergency ward is certainly one charity or one project that needs funds. There's also hospice. It goes on and on and on. So every year this can change and evolve. But this is a good start, and thank you very much, Council. So I will now call the question on I2. And it carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Councillor Fox.
Yeah, just wanted to bring to attention and maybe item number 16 on the March 1st distribution, which is a letter from Mrs. Grace Mueller with respect to the Farm Machinery Museum. So I just want to make that attention that this be part of the discussion as we move forward in terms of the Fort Langley project overall. Thank you.
So staff, make a note of that too.
Yes.
Have discussions. Thank you.
Thank
Any other
you.
business? Motion to terminate? Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Qualley. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.